So we have four talks. So we will be starting with Dr. Thomas George, who will be speaking on how much do I need as a corpus to retire. So I think after the talks and all, then we can have a session on the discussion and all later. So that
We
would
have
be
less
much more better rather than
time
between.
at the end is
So
for
by
discussion.
that all the people will come so that we can have a discussion. All right.
Good afternoon, everybody. By retirement, what we mean is a situation where we do not need to work to earn financially anymore. It is not sitting back without doing anything for the rest of your life. So basically, you're losing, or rather, you're losing your interest in actually adding money to just survive. So, how much money should I save to be independent financially? Any financial calculation is subject to unknown risks, and like what you see in the mutual fund documents, past performance is not indicative of future performance, but we have nothing else to go by, so we have to look at past performance. So, it's for any investment, this is true. We all consider that banks are safe, but of late, if you've been watching the news, you've been seeing quite a few banks collapse and go into turmoil, and people having their deposits stuck and not being able to withdraw. So they're not 100% safe. They're safer than a lot of other things. So we need to estimate at best because we cannot have a hard and fast number. Variables that we need is the present, first of all, is the present post-tax take-home income. Tax anyway we have to pay. So the money at your disposal is what is left after tax. So post-tax money is what you have to factor in as your income. And the other variable we need is at your present lifestyle, which you want to continue, what are your expenses? The present income over expenditure is what we need to know to maintain this present lifestyle for the future when we are not actively earning. It's not a mental calculation. Write in a book, a couple of months at least, you'll have an idea. Ideally, you should go through for the whole 1 year because there are expenses that you want to have which do not come on every month. Like Onam and Deepavali are not there in every month. They come in different months. So you may spend more on those occasions. So once we have it written down, we can easily look at it and see what are the necessary expenses. In other words, what are your needs which you cannot let go of. Then there will be the luxuries, optional expenses which would be considered as wants. Like I want to take a holiday to the Himalayas and that comes in as an expense. That is a want. You can do without it if you just want to survive. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Unwanted expenses. There are some expenses which when you look back, you say, I probably should not have bought that thing. And typically that happens nowadays with online purchases because if we delay it by 1 day, quite often we won't buy half the things we buy on Amazon and things like that. So now you have a number to work on. Let's say you, for the sake of calculation, I'm just putting in a number of, let's say you need 50,000 per month to survive. And we need a date of planned retirement, at which time we should have enough money in the bank. So we retire at 60 years of age. Again, I'm putting it as an estimate. And if you are 40, now you got 20 years more to go to build up this corpus. So how much will I need to maintain that lifestyle at 60? This is a magic number that we need to estimate, and it is, like I told you, a guesstimate. So my grandfather told me when he got employed, his salary was rupees 27. His family of 6 lived on 16 rupees per month, and he used to spend 11 to his parents, and he could buy 2 sovereigns of gold every year from that 16 that he used to keep for himself. Well, that was in 1927, and the absolute purchasing power comes down as years go past, and that is the inflation rate. If the inflation rate is declared as 5% this month, what it means is the same month last year, if you could buy something for rupees 1, This year, you need 1 rupee and 5 paise to buy the same thing. So inflation rate in India has averaged 6.02 from 2012 to 23 on averaging. The highest it has been is 12.17 and the lowest has been 1.54, but its average is around 6%. So let's peg it at 7% to be on the safe side. I like to overestimate inflation for calculating like this, hoping to be on the safer side. So if you need 50,000 now to survive, 20 years later, using the compound interest formula and an inflation rate pegged at 7%, you need 1,93,484.22, essentially around 2 lakhs for the present 50,000. So as a 60-year-old, you need to be able to withdraw 2 lakhs per month to maintain this lifestyle. Don't worry, there's a trick to doing it. Your return should stay significantly above compared to the inflation rate. Please consider the tax on the returns also when you're calculating, and please wait till later talks for a little more of this fund as to what to invest in. I will use a little bit of these topics to proceed further. Like suppose you have an FD. FD now gives just under 7% in most banks. Tax on the interest has to be deducted from this to see the growth, and suppose you are in the 20% tax bracket, it depends on which tax bracket you are in. So the effective interest now comes down by 20%, which means the 7% becomes 5.6. So it is under our assumed inflation rate of 6.02 that it has been averaging off late, maybe much below the 7% that we are using for calculation. It's not good enough. We need to find a way to make it grow above 8% post-tax to stay ahead definitely when averaged over the years. Retirement corpus is a concept where we create a nest egg amount that we plan to save to use for our leaner years, which will come when we are not actively getting a salary. Should be able to take bits out as we need it and not a bulk in one go. So it needs liquidity. Like if you invest in real estate, one, you may not be able to sell it at the time you badly need it. Two, if I got 10 cents of land, I can't sell 2 square feet at a time. Small bits cannot be sold, so real estate is not really meant as a retirement corpus. The remainder also will keep growing as years go by based on the investment classes that you have distributed it into. No real number can be perfect. Variables will keep varying. Inflation rate will vary. Return on investments can vary. And of course, life expectancy, nobody knows how long each of us is going to live. Unforeseen needs can cause a bulk expense in between, but there are still some rough thumb rules that give us a rough number. My job is to tell you those thumb rules. We need a nest egg amount at 60. It will be growing with the investment. How much can you withdraw without ever running out? Let's retire at 60. We may live to 95 to 100 max. So we are looking at planning for 35 years, 40 years post-retirement. And we already talked about the present expense being estimated at 50,000. We need 2 lakhs per month. So the annual expense now is 24 lakhs at age of 60, 20 years down the line. This is one magic number we work on, and we got a few rules that are there in which are popular. One is the 30x rule, which is what most of the Indian financial magazines are touting. It just makes calculation easier. You need 30 times your annual expense expected at 60 as your corpus to retire. So 24 lakhs means you need around am I going back or forward? It's moving on its own. Sorry. I'm trying to go back. Okay. Anyway, we end up with a corpus requirement as around 6 to 7 crores. And how do you get to that? consistent saving with a mix of investments that stay ahead of inflation helps. Remember to save before you spend, not save after you have spent. Quite often that way you'll have nothing to save at the end of the month. So you have to, at the start of the month itself, decide, okay, I'm saving 50%, 40%, 30%, whatever. And invest wisely what you save. It's not just enough to save and leave it in your pocket or the savings bank. So to get to these realistically, you need to save about 40-50% of your income. And what is the variable we can change? Go for a higher risk investment which will give you a higher returns. When younger, having more going into higher risk investment category is what is suggested. You can easily find your portfolio growing 15 to 20%. This is an international comparison of different countries. Nifty has, the Nifty index has given 21.5 returns percentage wise in 2021. It has been averaging 19.7 in the years before that. The calculation was from 1984 to 2021. The average is 19.7. It's about 20%. And this is a historical view of the Sensex. There was a great recession in 2008 and there was a big dip, but the very next year it's come back to what it was. So essentially the Sensex is giving around a compound annual growth rate of 15.91 or 16% is what Sensex is giving. So if your returns are going to be 7% with FD, you need to have monthly savings of 1,15,000. 10%, you need 80,000. At 15%, you need only 40,000 to get 6 crores in 20 years. Unless you're totally onto stock market, you're not going to dream any higher. But essentially, this is where you can adjust, and the compound interest will give you the returns over many years. Thank you.